So let me take you through Sizzix Chapter 2 for 2022. And this chapter, it's a small chapter as the other chapters are. But it's small but mighty, right? You know, in Chapter 1, we did a lot of springtime, Valentine, bunny, birds, that sort of thing. For this one, for Chapter 2, I wanted to do some floral elements, definitely some artsy mixed media kind of elements. And here is what I encourage you to do. If you're watching the replay, or even if you're watching live, watch this with an open mind, right? Because sometimes the packaging can be very deceiving in the sense of, you see the embellished image that I create for the packaging, because that's obviously what the die does. But what it can actually turn into or transform into from even a making style will surprise you, right? So just don't be fooled by that. But let's go ahead and get through. We're going to talk about all of the releases in the Thinlits, and we'll talk about the 3Ds, and then you will see the makes. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. All right. So first one is going to be a brushstroke, and this is Brushstroke Florals 4, right? 4, right? This is the, I will say, the final brushstroke in the large size series. I think, you know, once I get to 4, I think that's enough. But the cool thing about brushstroke, of course, is that they are large pieces that have these openings in them, and also have these brushstroke kind of layered elements. And a shout out to Lisa at Sizzix, Lisa Jones. She is the one that takes all of these amazing ideas and art that I send to her and turn them into dies. So thanks, Lisa, for all the work that you do, because really these start out as watercolor. That's the whole brushstroke idea. And so then she goes in and kind of outlines like where there would be a highlight and a low light. Now for packaging, of course, I just stick to solid color cardstock, but these are stunning with inky backgrounds, or just cut out of watercolor paper and then you do your coloring after you cut them, right? So cut them out of white watercolor cardstock, go in with your favorite watercolor or distress inks, or any inks for that matter, and do your watercolor wash. Absolutely amazing. But brushstroke 4 is scaled for the other brushstrokes, right? There's obviously 1, 2, let me put them down here. Yeah, that'll be easier. There's 1, 2, 3. So if you see 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Beautiful flowers that all work well together. So if you've been building your collection throughout and you like this series, you can see that all of these flowers, now we've got 2 really big flowers, right? Medium flowers, small flowers, and a whole host of different greens and stems. So it's just a cool collection. And I like to share this because just because I release a new one like number 4, it doesn't mean Sizzix keeps all the other ones around, right? Some of these, I don't know if they're retired or not, but just always let people know when something new comes out. It doesn't mean that all the old ones are still available, but it's great to know that they're in your collection. The other cool thing to remember is that if you have a shaping kit or a shaping tool, you can go in and shape these larger flowers to kind of give dimension or depth if you're going to use them on cards, or of course if you're going to use them for home decor or anything like that. So that is brushstroke 4, and these are the others. I love these. It's just such a cool concept because of the organic shapes of the flowers. I think that's what I like most about them. They just have such a fluid movement. Now with that, I had a lot of requests for other brushstroke things specifically to go with the flowers, and that's where these brushstroke butterflies came in. Same style, same aesthetic with those openings, those cutout openings, and those layers. Now again, out of some, and you'll see from the makes, out of colorful backgrounds, right? Watercolor or inks, these butterflies are beautiful. For packaging, I just like to stick to the basic, just kind of do solid color, because I think at shelf level, it's important for you to see the shape that you are buying or that you're getting versus, you know, the technique behind it. But inked up or any of your textures, transform these into something absolutely magical. You'll see that there is a base layer, that's the butterfly shape, these highlight layers, and then these bodies, all in that kind of sketchy brushstroke style. So those are the brushstroke butterflies. Then we will get into text, and you guys have seen a lot of sneak peeks. The makers have done a great job sharing the sneak peeks, and I love seeing all these quotes when they pop up in my feed. This is bold text number 2. Now, bold text 1 was released in chapter 1, and that one contained things like happy birthday, thank you, make a wish, those type of things. For bold text 2, I wanted to just do other very positive, cool statements or sentiments, if you will. Now, this is number 2. There's actually going to be 4 in the series. There is a bold text coming out for Halloween and a bold text for Christmas. So just so you know, if you like this concept. This is just a basic idea just to show you the size or scale on an A2 card. It is a plate die, meaning when you place it down, right, it's going to cut out that. It will deboss a little plate depending on obviously the thickness of your cardstock. This is 130 pounds, so it leaves a nice debossed edge. Thinner cardstock, it won't do that. But the nice thing is you're going to get the positive and the negative, right? So you'll get the negative cutout, which is its design, but you also get all these letters, and that's why you see a lot of makers kind of doing multiple cards. Another cool thing that I've seen from the makers is that they're using just words from these, right? They're not even using the whole sentiment. They're just using like the word smile. So that's a great thing to think about. One of my favorites, To the Moon and Back. Great thing to think about when it comes to making that you might just want a word. And the great thing about bold text is you're essentially getting different sizes of alphabets in there. Lucky is a state of mind, very popular one too. So that is bold text 2. I really like that. I think it's a lot of fun. So far so good, Mario? I'm watching the chat.
Yes.
All right, let me grab these.
Doing really well.
Okay. So brace yourselves for this one, because I think this is going to really surprise you. It's very different, but I think different is good. And I say that every single time I design something, that I always like to just challenge things, challenge your ways of thinking, and have you see things a little different. So this is called abstract faces, right? And the idea behind it is really for the mixed media world of it, right? Because you can do mixed media cards. Maybe you're a mixed media artist. Maybe you do fodder. There's a lot of people doing those fodder school where you're cutting out all of these cool elements that you can use in junk journals or art journals or even on cards. And so I wanted to really further develop this concept. And this concept really, believe it or not, was actually inspired by this one. This is an old one, right? So the cool thing about this die, right, these are all these great little media marks, had all these things of scribbles, right? This is a great die cut. I love the detail of that. But all these little elements that I used to see people do with white pen, right? Every time I saw a journal, I'm like, I can't really doodle or draw like that. And I know Diane says that I can, but I really was challenged. And I thought, but I could do this in a die because I can cut this out of cardstock or, again, watercolor paper or any backgrounds that I've done. I can make stencils, right? Because these dies, these strip dies here, they're either going to cut out these pieces or they're going to leave behind a negative. So I can use a lot of these just to cut through a piece of Yupo, use it as a stencil, right? Or I can use these positive pieces. And so I really like these elements, and I wanted to kind of continue with that because I saw people really embracing the organic shape. I mean, I saw that like when Dina Wakely can just sit there and scribble the most incredible organic shape. I'm like, I wish I could do that, but I couldn't. But I can find art that will do that, okay? So the whole thing about abstract faces, yes, I turn them into these cool faces because I like the element. Again, something I can't draw is a sketchy face, so I thought how great would it be to do a die. But this is really the die set. If you take it apart and you think about it, these are all the different dies you're getting in the set. So if faces aren't your thing, if it creeps you out, okay, think about this. Think of just these cool shapes that you will get in the die set. You're going to have this big solid piece. You're going to have this great burst, some different types of scribbles, right? So if you already have the other die set, you get some different kind of scribbles, right? Some that kind of look like a cloud or a little loop there, or just, I don't know, this kind of looks like a jellyfish or just a scribble. I love this wonky heart. I love this kind of organic leaf shape, this little half circle, a dot, but again, a wonky dot, one that has a little bit of a scribble mark in there. And then these elements, and these are the elements that could ultimately make up a face or not, right? So you don't have to use these pieces if you don't want to turn it into a face, but yes, it has a very kind of Picasso-esque look to it. So quite funky, but I think sometimes you look at the package, you're like, I don't do faces, but then you're thinking, wow, look at all these fun shapes you're missing out on, especially if you like to cut out your colorful backgrounds. Great, bold, large pieces that you can layer any which way. And I can just tell you that there's more of this concept coming out as well in the line because I just like it. I like having some playful shapes that I can cut out my backgrounds because, as you know, I love to make backgrounds. And sometimes I don't want to stamp all of them, right? Or I don't know what to do with all of those. So cutting them up with big elements that really showcase that, well, that's a win for me, okay? I do, yeah, I love the eyelashes, very quirky. I love the different lips. But just again, the marks, they're great, bold elements. So that's why I said, you know, sometimes you look at the packaging and you're judging that going, oh, I don't think I want to make that. And then you just saw that, you're like, oh, okay, I see what I get, right? Good value.
I look at the packaging and I see awesome.
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Cool.
I do love it. So then we're going to get into this one. This is called Modern Floristry. And again, you're going to see in this chapter a lot of different styles coming together, right? We started with brushstroke. That was something that I kind of continued. But again, I wanted some bolder, bigger pieces that I could work with, especially if you're using inks or textures or paste. You need a bigger surface to cut out so you don't lose all of your great background. And so these flowers, they're pretty big scale. And what I like about Modern Floristry, you'll see it's got a really big stroke to them, right? So a big flower, or it could just be a burst, right? Because this is a separate piece that layers on top. Some leaves, a couple of cool stems, but this could also be like a brush mark if you want. Some big solid flowers. Now all of these, you can either add this layered piece or not. So you kind of look at the side view of the flower, but you don't have to turn these into flowers, right? That could just be something that goes, I don't know, on top of a paper doll for that matter. Just has a nice, cool, modern vibe to them. And then you have these cutout dies, right? So there you go. I'll let the light kind of shine through them. These two dies are designed to cut out a texture. I suppose you could cut it out and try to glue these pieces down, but that would just be, well, that would be very time consuming. But the idea is that if you cut out, say, this shape or this flower, you could then lay one of these dies on top of that cutout piece and essentially punch some holes through it, right? And you don't have to put the entire die on it. You can just lay it off the side so you can have some extra lines cut through these. And these kind of dies, these little cutout dies, these little knockout dies, you can use them on any other die that you have. Think of them as like a die that's a punch, if you will, right? Just to add some small texture, and using any parts or pieces of it, however you lay it down, that's what's going to cut through there. So the whole idea with Modern Floristry is just a different take. I wouldn't say it's funky like how we did funky florals, right? I had a whole series of funky. I've done wildflowers, I've done brushstroke, I've done tattered. So it was really channeling a whole different look and feel, and I love the Modern Floristry. And just a little teaser, wait until you see the Christmas set in this style. It's very cool, and it scales perfectly with this one. So again, I love that. Then we just keep changing it up. So this is Artsy stems. I mentioned wildflowers and I mentioned stems and having these dies, but look at the scale of the die, right? When you see it on the package, you're like, oh, okay, but really look at how big these dies are. The cool thing about Artsy stems, again, I had people say, I wish you would make bigger dies that we could put on slimline cards, that we can put in an art journal, something that would give us an element. But I wanted something that had a very cool, playful look and feel to them. So working with Lisa, I licensed this art, but we kind of cut it up and made it our own because I really like the look of this. So you'll see here that there are different stems. I just cut mine out of watercolor paper. And even though I said, you know, I try to keep it simple, for these, I thought you're only going to see the magic if I cut it out of some inked background. So I inked a bunch of paper, just kind of rainbow colors, and then I cut this out. So I think that the idea, you can see very cool pieces. And let me break this down even further. Each one of these, of course, their own die, their own artsy stem. But you can look at this piece and say, right, I just want that piece. Let's just say the head of the flower, if you will. You can cut that. That's a cool shape. That, cool shape. Little spiral, cool shape. Cool shape, cool shape, cool shape. So each head of the flower is its own shape. Then if you turn it sideways, now look at all these great borders. Borders that you can see each one ended with a smooth line. A smooth line, well, and some are longer than others, but it just depends if you wanted to stamp a word or put some, an alphanumeric, like spell out a word here. Or you'll see in the next die, actually have a bird sitting on it, right? Because these stems are much longer than any of the other wildflower stems that I've done. It's actually the longest. It goes just close to 6 inches from end to end. And I like that because, again, the scale is very versatile. One of my favorites for this release. I just like the look of it. I think it has a great vibe to the style of it. And even these stems, they're all unique. They all have just a different style to them, right? Really, really fun. And then I mentioned birds because, well, I like birds, right? I did that whole, I love that watercolor bird that we did in chapter 1, but the silhouette birds, you can see a smaller scale, but take a look at this art. When I saw this art, I'm like, I have to license this because I love it because it's very paper cut. So I'm going to hold the art just closer so you can see the style, meaning nothing is smoothie, right? These aren't little bubblegum birds. these are really paper cut birds. And I loved all the poses, the positions of the bird, right? Depending on where you want to place this, right? It can stand alone or it can stand on different things. Again, back to these stems, right? You can treat that like a cool wire. So you could have like a bird on a wire, but the wire is artsy. I just like it. And I think even for Halloween, you could have like a cool kind of Raven-esque bird from this set. So if you think about it, I just like the style. So sometimes the style itself is what sells me on an idea, so to speak, because I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's great. I've done a lot of birds, but usually they're, you know, they're cute and they're rounded and they're soft and they kind of have those curved lines. But these, man, that art really speaks to me. And again, you have a big surface. So if you wanted them to be mixed media, you can take those. You can take, I'm going to dig back in here. You can take this die, right? And then you can take that and cut it out of one of the birds after you cut it out, just to give it some holes, right? Or maybe you want to just put some lines in it. So these little cutout pieces can be used on a lot of solid dies that you get. So just wanted to share those ideas as we go through, because I think the makes also are just going to be amazing, but I do love the look of these silhouette birds. So that's it for the dies, but now we'll talk about 3D. And you know that I've said every single time that when I do 3D, each time I try to push the envelope a little bit more. So a shout out to Ryan at Sizzix, who always takes on the challenge. You saw in chapter 1 that we really dealt with the highs and the lows. We took some really big elements, like we have the doily and we have that wonderful big like damask background. But this, I wanted to really hone in on the detail, like how fine-tuned can we get it? So this first one, this is cracked leather. And if you're a fan of the distressed leather cardstock that I do with Ranger with that great texture, which many of you have said, I wish you would do a folder, I wish you'd do a folder. Well, that was the inspiration to say to Ryan, I've had so many people ask about creating a similar texture to that Ranger cardstock. This is a bigger scale, I will tell you. It's not nearly as fine as the Ranger one because, well, we couldn't get it that detailed. So if you still like that really fine, thin leather, that cardstock is going to remain in the line with Ranger, thank goodness. But this is a great folder. And then we have woven, which is kind of like a linen or a burlap, if you will, texture. Both of these 3D folders, I just have to share with you the texture and what you can do. So cool. So first up, cracked leather, right? So this is what it looks like on watercolor cardstock. I mean, take a look at, just look at the detail, right? So not only do you have all those circles, but look at that little wrinkly texture in there. It just has such a realistic look. You can also use this, say, on mixed media. Really nice. Very, very cool. Love that effect. And then, of course, if we do things to it, right? If we ink it, we do a little, and I've shared this technique on the website about doing ink, and then I got that little tip about putting a little bit of paint over the top from Stacy. I just use a brayer on that, and then this has a little layer of resist spray. Just kind of mist it on there and then rubbed over the top to give it that shine. But take a look at that, right? That is the coolest realistic white paper leather ever that you could put, again, on a book, a journal, a tag, anything. But I love the texture. And you're going to see again from the makes that there are so many different colors of leather, because now you can make pink and teal and metallic and really any kind of color you want. But the texture, wow, that is one impressive 3D folder. Because again, that detail, spectacular, spectacular. And then we get into woven, and I think woven was a favorite from the makers because I see it used on so many different things, even just background pieces where it's just an element in the make. Woven, you can see a very organic texture. So I didn't just want to create like a plaid or a little checker screen. We took a scan in of some fabric. So you can even see where the fabric gets thicker, a little bumpier, right? Where the threads kind of come together or where they thin out, and create a folder. And that is the challenge that Ryan always has. Is like, okay, I want, at a distance, I want you to see those differences in the weave of woven. So again, watercolor cardstock, right? Even down to like what we learned from doily, that little detail, like look at that. Look at how even those two threads that run parallel are separate. That's amazing. So amazing. Again, on mixed media, right? Just so you know, you can ink that. And of course on craft. Craft, one of my favorites, because you can just take the 130-pound craft heavy stock that's embossed, and then I just rubbed an ink pad over it. Nothing Nothing fancy on this one, but I love the outcome. Because there's different highs and lows when you rub your ink pad, some areas get darker than others, right? And so that really gives that authentic look. See, I think it's a great background, especially if you love coffee. Just reminds me of like, you know, the burlap coffee bean bag. It's a good one. Yeah, this is woven. And I saw some comments this would be good for Halloween. This is, I mean, that's the thing about textures. It's like they are just so great to add just that little bit of, I don't know, magic to any make. So we have cracked leather and woven. And that's a release. That is the release for Chapter 2. We're going to get into the make. So I'm going to get some stuff set up. How are we doing, Mario? Anything?
So
cool.
People love the faces. Absolutely, positively love the
Really?
faces. Yes.
Cool. Well, then you just better buckle up, because you're going to be, if you like the faces from the packaging, which that does surprise me a little bit. I love them, but you know, I always think that it's just going to be like, I don't know, just going to be judged when it's there.
No,
It's
I
like,
absolutely love them.
yeah, cool. All right. Well, let's get into the makes, because I do think that the makes always show the possibility for any shape. I think it's really important. So a shout out to all the makers. And again, I'm just sharing live makes, but all of the makes for all the makers will be on timholtz.com following this. Like I said, there's 22 total makers. I don't know, maybe we have like 8 or 10 live makers. So again, that just helps me keep my time down, and so I don't have to stand here for hours and hours. And plus it gives you, I think, a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit of time to soak in the inspiration. Because let's face it, when we see these makes, they're absolutely incredible. And also when you see all the different makes that you can be overwhelmed, right? You can see so much that it's like, oh, okay, now my brain's just shut off. So let's go through, there's a little bit for each one. This first one is from Kubert, and I love this card using the brushstroke 4. Because again, the scale of that, beautiful with the layers. You see what I said when you're just doing some inking, and you don't even have to do a lot of inking, but inked paper to me is so much better than color cardstock for these dies, because they just take on that true kind of watercolor look. That's just my opinion, and I love it. But it's not to say that you can't do it, because they still look great regular solid cardstock. But just pair it over here on a textured background, have some of those pieces. And the nice thing about each of these being elements is obviously you get to create your own floral, right? It could be one flower, it could be a bunch of those, it could just be some greenery. That's the beauty of having floral dies where you have specific elements, because you get to become your own florist and you get to create that. All right. This next one, Debbie Adams, just amazing. She created this, look at this, out of paper, just this little cool little folio with a little envelope, and I just love all the detail and stitching. But the front of this, you can see, take a look at those florals where they look like this is done out of leather, because, well, that's the cracked leather 3D folder on those brushstroke. So even if you're not into the colorful side of that, you can certainly take these flowers and create a beautiful vintage vibe, right? Put this over your cardstock. But I love that detail and texture that she put in there, right? Because to me, just adding that, it really gives it a totally different type of depth on there. So very cool, Debbie. I love it. And it's fun because every maker just has a whole different style to what they do with a die. Natifa did this, and Tifa, I just think it's so, first of all, I'm going to talk about the background. And I know we're here to talk about the dies, but let's just celebrate this background of this envelope, right? Look at all the tapes, right? These are all the ideology tapes. There's that linen tape, and then we have those really skinny trim tapes. I love that as a background pattern, right? And then you can see Make Today Count out of that bold text die, and then I love the metallics of the brushstroke, right? So you can do metallics. This is some embossing glaze on there to give it a whole different level of shine. But what a cool envelope to add those pieces to. And if you're not into envelope art, remember, anytime you see samples, right? Any of the makes, think of it for the idea, the color, the texture, any of that, and apply it your way, right? You may not be into purple, but you might like pink or teal. So you might want to jot that down. I know there's many people that say, oh, I've got a notepad handy, because it is those ideas that you're like, oh, you know, remember brushstroke, try it out of metallic. Oh, add some glaze to the top layer. Oh, pair that with, you know, a neutral background. And that's what I love about the makers, how they really just stay true to their style and create such cool and unique makes, because I think that's the importance of of makers, right? Everyone doing their own thing. So then we're going to get into brushstroke butterflies. This is another card from Kubera. I love the butterflies on there. And again, just changing. So these are essentially the same colors I did on the packaging, but not solid color cardstock. This is inking. And what a difference it makes, right? So just cutting it out of some inked cardstock, whether you're using your oxide, your distress ink, your sprays, then you layer this. But look at that background. Woohoo! I love that brick 3D, right? It's very cool to just see those butterflies paired on that. I don't know. It's like pretty meets grungy, and I think it's a very cool contrast in that. But yeah, that's another favorite folder, right? Love the colors of that brick. Little baseboard on there, right? Little quote. Nice. Very cool card to look like that. And I'm going to keep this one in here because I'm also going to show you this trio of cards that Kath made, right? So great to see just different styles. And this is something that I always say, Kath, I love these cards because Kath sends a lot of multiples of a look and feel. And I think that's so important for makers, because if you are working on something, let's say you've got some colors of inks or some mediums out, you should be creating multiple backgrounds at a time, right? Maybe you're in background mode with your stencils. So just do a bunch of backgrounds where you have them. And then if you're doing a piece of paper or whatever surface you're working on and you're inking and doing all of that, then you have the ability to cut out several shapes and easily construct cards. But I love the look of these. I love the stenciling in the background, right? All those little areas, little stamping, little layers. I like the addition of the string, but I love these mixed media look to the brushstroke butterfly, right? Different colors, some stamped imagery, add some stickers, right? But each one, of course, when you change the color, it just changes the entire look of the butterfly. That is the magic of die cuts in the world of Sizzix. I think people really underestimate the power of a shape. If you have a great shape, especially what I like about brushstroke, like I mentioned, these little cutouts, when you're layering things, it is nice to show a little bit of that reveal in the background, right? And having these little layers, these inked areas, you could just simply glue the body and you can have these wings dimensionalized if you want. There's just so many possibilities when you're creating with the dies. But I mean, that's the magic of working with different shapes, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's keep going into a little modern. And I broke down the samples pretty much by die, just so you can, I think, appreciate. I think if you want, is the string a scribble on the die? It is not. It is just string that's just been glued down on there. But you could use that. That'd be a great idea to use that scribble as a die. But no, that was just string. So this one, Modern Floristry. And again, I love the look of this. Kubera created this card. See how nice and bold and just, I don't know, very, very vivid these shapes are. That Modern Floristry, it's unlike any of the other flowers that I've ever done, which I really like. I love seeing it on textured background, right? If we have crackle paste or texture paste or just kind of some smudges on there. I like the layering, the dimensional layering, right? Using foam tape. I also love how this just kind of overlaps that sentiment just a little bit. Just a great way to introduce some pops of color on there, right? Then this is a card that Kath created. So first, before I even get into the modern floristry of it all, take a look at the background of the card, right? Just take that in for a second, because really, at first glance, you would think, oh, that's got to be some gesso, some texture paste, right, that you built up. Nope, that is the woven 3D folder. So look beyond the fact that it looked like burlap from the sample and think of it more of a canvas, right? Look at how Kath created that wonderful canvas look or textured look. It almost even looks like stucco using that folder. Really cool. Then you see the modern floristry on there, that bold text, and just, you know, I always like fancy card mechanics, right? Look at that. Oh my gosh. Seriously, Kath, that is just woven overload. If that background alone just doesn't make you fall in love with this folder, well, then that folder is not for you, because this is what it's all about. Just seeing that texture as a folder and then all the inks and the splatters over it. I mean, come on. The texture is insane. I saw that. It really is. That's a thing about embossing folders. And I've done others, you know, I've always done flourishes and swirls and all that, but I'm really, like, when I think of 3D texture, it's like, okay, I'm going to use that folder to actually add texture to a make. And even though your folder, of course, starts out as a panel, it's very easy to piece it together, right? You can see that you can piece and patch these together when you're building any kind of make. You don't need to have a particular repeat in that, but very, very cool. And I love just the repetition of those colors and the flowers, of course, from that modern floristry. I told you, it's just a wonderful, big, bold floral. Just a fun piece to have. Now, Jeanette created this. I love Jeanette's mixed media style. She totally celebrates color and just does all sorts of great layering ideas. So this is an etc. tag. That's the foundation of that. And again, just look at the layers, right? The texture, stickers, and then all of these beautiful modern floristries. And I like the offset as well. I think that's really clever to add that little highlight. Cut two shapes, right? One out of white, one out of a color, and then offset and layer those. But Jeanette, I love how you even offset the flowers, right? Where you take it and you're gonna stack the second one and just kind of give it a little shift. So see how you can completely change the look of the flowers just by giving it a little partial twist to add a layer. So imagine when these are shaped, right? So this is great for a mixed media project, but if you wanted to create something maybe that's going to go onto a package, right? Or maybe you're going to do a wreath. Shaping these and stacking multiple layers of them, that's why we like to have these opening areas, and that's why I don't like the flowers to be symmetrical, because when you turn them, you're going to get longer petals underneath that you can add dimension. You can curl them up, you can curl them out, but that's what I love about the whole style of these flowers. Yeah, aren't the colors just amazing? So good. Yeah, I do love etc. tags. It's a great foundation, especially if you're that maker that kind of wants to move beyond the card, right? Dabble in something. Maybe you don't want to, go full on to a canvas. I really like that because it's a very sturdy. It is made out of paper, right? It's a paper board, but you can't cut it, right? These are laser cut because it seems like wood, but it's done out of paper, right? Then we have this envelope from Natifa. I love the cutout window in this envelope. I also love seeing that ideology snapshot in there. Absolutely beautiful. You'll see some ephemera in there, little clippings, the beauty of this life, and a great use. I mean, what I liked about this, and I'm not sure if this was even your intention, Natifa, but I like how you essentially transformed an envelope into a picture frame, right? Taking that because it does give you like a little, I don't know, a little thickness to work in. And by putting in those photos and adding those layers and then using the dyes, again, the colors of that modern floristry going around, that could just set up as a frame, right? I love the idea of that because just adding a little bit of foam, don't want to show off the mechanics, but see a little bit of foam underneath that opening, right? Pops that out, gives it that extra bit of depth. And you could still mail this, but it's just great that it could be a picture frame. And I love that. I love seeing those worlds collide within the brands. I always think it's fascinating. Paul and I talk about that all the time, where it's so cool. Makers, when they use, an ideology with Sizzix, is just something really fun. Oh, cool. It is a frame. I just thought it was really great and clever, just even down to the dimension underneath there, because it really draws you into the photograph. But beautiful. And again, love the use of color, right? So I love it. It's so unapologetically bold. That's when you're that artist, it's like, here it is. And I think I love that. I do. Then Kath created these cards, again, just to show you how you can really switch things up, right? Any style. But these elements, you get to pick and choose which elements you want to use anytime you purchase a die set, right? Just because all the dies are on the packaging, sure, you can use them all together to create an arrangement, but you can also just pick and choose the pieces that you want to do. And this is not only showcasing the modern floristry, but also the use of bold text, right? I think Kath did a great job in these trios. Again, taking just a stamp image as a stamped background, right? There's "you got this," right? That's using the positive from that cutout and then adding those florals. And then I just like the repetition of that. When you're really going to encourage someone like you got this, just really great. But again, over a stamped background. And I like the frame too. I like leaving that area of the card just undone. I think that's really a clever thing to mask off that edge using a background stamp, because the stamp is bigger than this. So this would have been masked off. And then there is the "you got this" that's cut out. And if it's going to go inside a card, you can just lay a piece of cardstock inside to cover that up, or you can have that visual showing through. There's those little cutouts, right? Love seeing those cutouts in there, and then just a stamped image over that. Because again, having the big shapes, right? The big surface area of modern floristry means that you can add color, you can add texture, you can layer, you can offset, and you can stamp on them. So yeah, pretty amazing. I mean, I always like to, when I'm putting these, kind of separating them by maker, because I always do that the night before when we're setting up for the live. It's the first time I really get to look at things. And I'm like, I love that the makers can get the same die set and just do them, right? Do their style. And when you see it all come together, you're like, it's just hard to wrap your head around that it's the same shape. But that's what I love about the lives. You get to see it all come together, and it's like, okay, this is my style. That's not my style. Ooh, but I like that idea that I can do in that color. That's what inspiration's all about. So I'm always so grateful to the makers for really, not only sharing that, but being so confident in their style and what they do and how they do it. All right. So next up, we'll talk about I love this, the Artsy stems. And really the makers got super artsy with this, right? So Tammy B created this box. So first I'll show you the vignette itself, right? So these are the scribbles, right? These are the scribbles from Abstract Faces, just glued down. And what a great texture that is. It's almost like, when you do that little noodly stringy thing with hot glue, although that never works well for me because my hot glue never stays this skinny. It seems to become very blobular. But I like the idea of adding these dies onto the vignette and then painting over it because it gives such a great scribbly texture. But if you look inside, it is very Alice in Wonderland, right? Right? You've got the caterpillar on top of the mushroom, which I believe these pieces, they do look very much like they're some of the shapes from the Abstract Faces. I do. I think she used some pieces like, I think the rocks are those little half, like that half circle. And there's something tells me that there's some pieces. I think that, well, I definitely can tell that that caterpillar is from that weird leafy shape. But I love that. And look at just how whimsical those stems are, right? Adding them in the back, the taller ones, having some shorter ones. And I like because they are so cut out, so translucent, that you can see every single layer in front and behind. I think that's another fun thing. So, Tammy B said they're all abstract. See, that's the great thing about a piece. You can take that. Well, you'll see so many possibilities for shapes, and that's just proof right there. But I love that. Again, using a little ideology, just a fun make and a fun box with creating those pieces. Then we have this piece by Emma. I love the framed panel, right? There's a lot of different dies coming together. And that's the other thing that I want you to really kind of be open to, which is it's great to have dies, but as you can see from these makes, it's also great when you take the elements from different die sets and bring them together into a make that you want to create. So here Emma used obviously the stems in the back, right? And you don't even have to use, just because they're really tall flowers doesn't mean you have to use them in their entirety, right? I think they look great just coming right out of that bold text. You can see that inlay of the metallic. That's another fun thing about these kind of dies, that you can cut this out. You've got the negative letters that drop out for another make, and then you cut it out of, say, metallic cardstock and then inlay those pieces so it's completely flush, or you could back it with metallic. But I love that inlaid look. There's the bird. I love that silhouette bird, right? Also like the little addition of a wing. That's nice. Just probably cut off from another piece. I think that's great. Using the etc. trims. I love, there's that little flower from Bunny Games. I do recognize that little flower. Just a lot of pieces. But even if you just look at the frame itself, the background, like look at just that piece of paper as the background, that's stitched. There you go. I'll try to go all the way around. Stitched and then just kind of ruffled and wrinkled and threads hanging everywhere. It totally changes and gives it a very handmade look. But the ink, right? I'll say it probably a dozen more times in this live. Inky backgrounds really bring die cuts to life. So anytime you're intimidated by a die because you see a lot of color, even if it's colorized, don't be afraid to just cut those pieces out of white watercolor cardstock, right? Like your distressed watercolor cardstock cuts perfectly with dies, but watercolor paper, and then do your inks. Add your colors later, because this will allow you to customize, make the stem green, make the head of the flowers whatever colors you want, and then you can still add your splatters and all of your texture. But I really love that piece and how all of those elements come together. Then we have another etc. tag. So Kath created this one. I love this. Now let me point out what is really cool about this one. And maybe you're going to notice it on camera, maybe you won't. But if you look at the background of this, this is the backside of the woven texture, if you will. You know, when you emboss something with a 3D folder, you're going to get the innie and the outie, right? The positive and the negative. If you flip it over, this just kind of created more pillows. So you have a much softer background, right? Almost like a wallpaper background versus all of those raised textures that you saw from her last one, that card that had all that cool texture that was grabbing the paint and the ink that went over it. This just has a completely different texture. So it's great to see the versatility of a folder. And then we've got those stems. I love these bold text. See, that's the nice thing about having dies like this, especially if you like to create pieces. It does give you something substantial that you can create, right? That choose to shine. And I love that hint of, you see all that metallic on there? Look at that foundry wax. Oh my gosh. If you guys haven't used foundry wax, just adding foundry wax to the edge of your die cuts or the edge of things, man, when you heat it, that's what's giving off that wonderful shine, right? So cool. Again, an etc. tag. Just showing you that you can go beyond the card with die cuts, but we can still reel it back in. We can still reel it back into different cards, right? So Sharon created this card. Look at how fun and playful this is. Again, woven as a background, that texture. And I love seeing these. They're just, of course, they remind me of lollipops because I just think candy. But I love seeing that same shape, right? Because you do have a choice of your shapes. You can mix and match. You can make it as whimsy or artsy as you want, or you can just take a shape and do repetition. But I really like the simplicity of cards, and I always love the pop of color that Sharon brings, that white space, right? With a little ink blending and a little ideology label sticker. Because texture, right? Just that little shine. Yes, it could have been a stamped sentiment and there would be nothing wrong with that. Or it could have been an ideology sticker, right? Like it could be a clippings or it could be small talk, but I love these label stickers because, well, it's that plastic with that raise. And I love the contrast too of that kind of artsy background and then just that bold. But you know, I'm a fan of the label maker. Just look at the website, right? Am I right, Neil? I love that font. I do. All right.
A lot of people are seeing lollipops.
Well, good. I probably put that in their head, like, see candy. See candy. Yeah, it is. It's great. So this is a card that Jan created. Again, look at the background. I love how many makers paired the folder with this. Again, see, the makers don't know what each other are doing. They pick different things. Not every maker has the same assortment of dies. They pick and choose what they want. But it's great to see how it's like, oh, this texture goes good with this. And obviously their use of that. So here you can see the woven in the background, some crackle paste that Jan did, and then these are just cut out of inky backgrounds, right? So if you don't really care about having this a color and that a color, right? You can just do a background and you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And I think that is the serendipitous nature of cutting from your backgrounds. You might just be surprised of how well those colors will lay out when you put them on something. And you saw again from the packaging that I had all of these stems essentially the same height-ish, right? So it is nice to be able to just cut down those pieces to bring it all the way down to the bottom of a card and create those layers, right? Cool, right? Great cards, great colors, great uses for just this design. And then Jeanette's like, all right, you want to see color, just stand back, okay? Because I'm going to show you what that is. And this, I mean, take a look at this. I'll go through this, but I mean, when I saw this tag book of all these dies and all this color and writing, and it's like, oh, just chills, right? All right, so let me just fold this back up. So it's essentially tags, right? She's got the tapes behind it. But I'm going to take you through and just show you that if you have been making a bunch of backgrounds, right? And you have all these, or maybe your tags, right? The same people like you're mayor of Tagtown. Yeah, I like tags. I just like to work with them. And you don't know what to do with them, or they're not matchy-matchy. This is just brilliant to take your favorite backgrounds. I mean, let's look at that texture in there. Ooh, it's so good. And then you can just add a shape. Well, cut out a black cardstock. right? Give it that bold contrast, little tiny attacher, little ideology sticker, but it doesn't always have to be the same. It doesn't have to be the same background, the same layout. It doesn't have to be. Each one could be its own idea, but together that is the mixed media, right? The first word in mixed media is mixed. That's supposed to just be just this hodgepodge of ideas that come together to create magic. Mixed media doesn't need to be matchy-matchy or be called match media. This is mixed, so mix it up and don't be afraid to embrace every idea and celebrate its uniqueness in putting it together. I think sometimes as makers we really get restricted that everything needs to match. But I love seeing this with a little bit of paint splashed on the top of that black cardstock. There's a bird, right? You see some collage paper down there. Here's some texture through a stencil, right? That map stencil, little tiny attacher, and again, each piece, and whether you're adding ribbon or fibers to the top just to add some texture, right? Again, some collage paper, some writing. No matter how much I try to do writing, that doesn't matter. I can't. But I'm working on it. I'll keep going. I love that bird, little alcohol ink on there, right? There's that modern, look at that modern floristry, just the pop again on that background. See, each one is like its own work of art when you're creating. And I love seeing that ideology. See these numbers? Those are from the ideology stencil cards, right? That you can just cut up and use as a background. Those pieces really weren't designed as stencils, although people are using them. They're really designed to be inked and cut up. So I love seeing that. Again, the stem, some more texture through a stencil. I love that grime, that crackly stencil. And just all of these words, right? If you look, it's like be brave. Look at those birds together, right? And take a look at that. I love that, just kind of use that little swirl, the lollipop, if you will, almost like a little nest, right? And then added some extra string. Just the ideas are just brilliant when you see all of those in there. And that little bit of alcohol ink on black, I love the texture on there. And then just the color, right? So cool. So cool to see it all together. Again, when you see these ideas, that is the magic of mixed media, is just mixing it up and celebrating those ideas, each one for their own individuality. Just great. So that's the inspiration, just showcasing what you can do with stems, obviously, and then mixing and matching the dyes. I told you that this release, it just has a lot of, I don't know, it has a lot of variety to it, a lot of fun to it, and I think that's important. It's important to remember as a shape that you can do so much than just one thing, right? So next we're going to get into the birds, right? And the birds, of course, are paired with a lot of things. So this tray, Jan created this. This is a vignette tray. So you can see in the background, right, there's some ideology paper, little crackle. But then inside here, again, if you're going to do a home decor piece, you can go in and do the florals, right? Take all those elements of the modern floristry. I love the bird. I love how she twisted all of that string just to kind of make the little bird on the wire. She used those nails from Ideology. I love those tack nails, right? They just add such great texture. And then all the birds are there. And then one of the new Ideology flashcards to say home. And what a great decor piece, right? What a great piece to create for yourself, someone, a friend that maybe just moved into a house, or just a decorative element. I like that when you look around and you see the things that are in your craft room, your creative space, okay, or your craft closet or your craft table, you could take a word and then just build a story around it. And don't be afraid to layer your dies, right? Don't be afraid to cut a bunch of pieces and tuck them under there and give them a little bit of shape and really bring that, give it dimension, right? Don't be afraid to layer all those pieces, because that's what it's all about when it comes to shapes, is that when you use it together and you combine different shapes, you can really tell a story. It is a great decor piece. Then Tammy B created this. I love this little accordion book with these birds, right? Just so nice to see all of the stems, the birds, the text, and just where we have that kind of staggered, that zigzag book, right? Love the stitching around it as well. Look, learning to fly, right? Challenge the world. These are Ideology clipping stickers, just to add those little text. Now is the time. Really nice. And then you got this. What a great encouraging card to send to someone, right? I love that. I love the whole construction of it, right? Where you're building. Oh, of course she did the back. Of course. Look at those little elements. So when you think, why do I need so many birds? Well, this is why. right? Because they have different poses, looking down, where it can be standing on something or looking into it. That is what I told you when I saw that art initially. I'm like, I love this, because usually when I've done skews with birds, it's like either one bird or just a couple, but having a variety of all of these different perspectives, I think it's great because it does provide some possibilities, right? Very cool. And look at the texture of that. You see that cracked leather? And you got this. Look at the color of that. Isn't that beautiful? Seeing that little subtlety, right? It really complements the watercolor paper, but I really like seeing that cracked leather in different colors. And again, a bigger scale than the distress one, but really, really nice. Is there a bird on the back? Ah, there it is. Yeah, look at that. It's all the detail, right? Always the detail. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. This panel, this is from Sharon. This is one of the new vignette boxes, but they're squares. And I've said that what I love about the Ideology vignettes, right? They're wood, which makes it really nice and stable, but it also just looks finished from the beginning because they're charred. But yes, you can design inside, but the beauty of this is that they can make really great art panels, whether they stand up or whether they hang on the wall. You can see the woven all the way around. So if this was hanging on the wall, it would look like it's a chunky canvas, right? Because we have that woven folder going all the way around. And Sharon, I love the sentiment on there. So you have hello there, that's just die cut and layered. And then you have those birds that have the embossing glaze on them just to give it that shine. I love that color, right? And then just over that ledger background with the splatter. Isn't that just it's a great make with the dies. It's just a fun thing to do. And I think that's the important thing to remember when it comes to shapes, is that don't just settle for packaging. That's why we do these lives. That's why we have makes right on launch day, because these dies are available now worldwide. They are shipping now. And I think seeing that inspiration when you get it and not waiting months to see what people are going to do with it is what always sparks, I think, the imagination to just run when you get it and not have fear of using your supplies, right? I love this envelope that Natifa did. Let me just tell you that this background, the collage paper, I love that. The ephemera, the snippets, love that. But what sold me were these tapestry birds, right? Using that linen tape from Ideology. It's kind of like it's like a carpet bag kind of design or motif. I love that it's really just the patchwork design, and taping that and then die cutting through that. These birds it's like simple patchwork. I remember when I did the Biggs patchwork bird and I was layering all those pieces of fabric, and when I saw this, I'm like, that is really brilliant, because this tape, the repeat of that tape, if you saw the Ideology live, it is designed as patchwork. They're like little snippets of different designs, but to cut it up and fill a paper and then die cut that shape, I love the tapestry look of it. And then paired with all the colorful pieces of ephemera or the Curator. That's my favorite. I love the Curator one because it's all these little colorful labels. I'm so glad we kept it from Halloween. And then you see just that little scribbly bit, right, on the back, and then an Ideology label. So just really beautiful to see all of those details, and especially just starting out with collage paper as your background, right? One of my favorite collage papers. It's retired now, but I loved all those printed colorful ones. Just cool. Just great envelope, Natifa. I love the idea of it. You know what? I'm gonna keep these down here again. I think I have room. I look at the basket and I think, am I gonna have room? Yes, I'm gonna have room. I will. All right. So here's a card that Kubert did with the birds. Very clever again. So here's just using a moon mask as your background, right? The moon mask that we did last year, Stampers Anonymous, and then taking these birds, right? Drawing this in. I'm guessing this is drawn in because I don't recognize a stamp like this, but very clever to do. And then adding those little branches on there. But I love the idea of taking your alphabets, your alphanumeric, and cutting through those silhouette birds, because again, it's big enough that you can still stamp and it just says love with all your heart. But a great idea for a big card, or again, this could go into a frame. It's what it's all about, seeing inspiration and ideas. So these, I wanted to bring both of these in because
Yes, she drew it.
I love these. Oh, cool. It's very cool. I love the detail of it. So I said, like, because I don't have a stamp like that, but that's good inspiration. Tiffany created these, and so I'm going to show both of these. So one is a tag and one is just a page in in a journal. Tiffany, I love both of these because it celebrates, again, the fact of if you're doing backgrounds, if you have your inks out and you have all of your medium, have a bunch of different surfaces to play with, right? It could be a stack of tags. It could be a journal that you're mopping things up with. Because the nice thing about having all these colorful backgrounds, they become amazing art pieces. And I know that there's a lot of people that do journals, right, that keep stuff in it. For me, I don't know if I could ever do a journal because everything that I would do, I'd be like, oh, I need to rip that out and put that in a frame or put that on the front of a card. And maybe there's some people that work in their journal that way, right? That they just use it as an idea, but when an idea is really incredible, they just cut it out and use it for something else. Maybe. But I love seeing the mixed media background, right? All the inks, oxides. I love the texture of just that little scrap of textile, the lace, and that collage bird, right? You see how that paper is actually wrinkled and textured on there? Ooh, so good, right? Just layered on there. And then use your wings as a little bit of distress embossing glaze. Another thing, you'll notice in these makes that the makers really celebrate texture as well. I mean, if you've only done stuff with paper, that's great. But next time you do something, just play around. Add a little layer of glaze onto something, right? You don't have to glaze it all like a donut. You can just simply add a little pop of texture that's going to make it different and stand out from the background, whether it's going to be fabric tape, whether it's going to be embossing glaze, whatever that is. It's just important to layer that up. I also love seeing, again, the scribbles, right? From abstract faces. You've probably seen more in here, and we're going to get to abstract faces, but you've seen more scribbles used for different things because that's really what that die was designed to be, are just these elements, but they could make faces for those that can't draw like me. But I love seeing that. Look at the texture back there from that stencil. So good, Tiffany. And look at this little bit of leather, right? Looks like leather, but it's just the embossing folder on paper to give it that really thin textured look. I'm trying to get the light to hit it so you can see it. Some remnant rubs, just again, texture and layers, just yummy. That's just cool. It's very cool to me. I love the mix. I'll leave that open because that's the beauty of it. And then we have a card trio that Kath created as well using the birds. And like I said, you know, taking an idea, saying, hey, I'm going to have my stuff out. You'll be amazed how efficient you can be with your supplies when you're doing a background day or a die cut day or an assembly day. So these cards that Kath did, again, the inky background, you can see just the strong silhouette just done in, this is just the black craft stock. What's nice about the black craft stock is that it is a craft paper with black printed over the top. This was inspired by Zoe to do an entire pack of that. And so we have it in that new 100-pound smooth textured black because when you sand it, you see the brown around the edges, right? Because you can't really ink brown around the black cardstock. So sanding this, it really gives you that distressed effect on the black cardstock. I love paired with the bold text too, right? To the moon and back, those little hearts. Look at that, you got this. And I love the use of just the O's, just to add those little detailed elements. And then look at this one. Happy Bird Day. You know, we like a good play on words, don't we, Mario?
We do.
Right? Flamazing, Bird Day. This is really clever, Kat. So yeah, Happy Bird Day. And then this is just string, right? Just wrapped around the card so it gave them wires to sit on. You can see so many ideas for using birds. And I think, I mean, I've kind of been reading in the comments as well that many people are like, yeah, birds, I have them, don't use them, right? But then maybe you see this kind of style or look to it and you're like, okay, I see the possibility, the potential of what I can do with the shape. And stylistically, that's what I said at the very beginning, and I'll keep reminding you, stylistically, you can take any shape, right? That's the beauty of getting into die cuts. It's not just cutesy scrapbooks and cards. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They are tools, right? They are tools that you can actually grow with. If your style grows and changes and evolves into different colors or textures or looks, that die can do that very thing right along with you, just depending on how you want to incorporate that shape. All right, amazing, right? So inspiring. I agree, Stacy. Never enough birds. Yeah, the makes are, wait till you see, because I saw the birds that Stacy did, and they're just, it's so cool. The makers just, the after party, like it's like the fun just keeps going and going and going. All right. So here we have another etc. tag. This is from Jeanette, and this is taking the birds, and it's also getting us into the bold text a little bit more. But again, taking that and adding some elements, whether that's just crumpled up collage or tissue paper. I love the shine over this whole thing, right? Whether you're going to use a gloss varnish or resist spray, but just adding those as a very stark contrast to a background. And again, just that word, right? I told you that you'll see a lot of different makes where they just chose a word from the bold text instead of the entire quote. And I think that's great. But man, the attention to detail in the layering, that's the thing about mixed media, that you're only as good as your next layer, right? You put that down, you're like, okay, I'm going to add another layer over the top. And some people don't even understand the process of it, right? Because they just think like, well, you just put that down. Why did you cover it up? Well, because you want to, because you want that reveal. You want that little faintness to just appear and disappear at random. That's what I think gives any piece just that much more interest in trying to look for the detail. So very cool tag. Then we'll really focus on the bold text themselves. Actually, I'm gonna bring this one in because I normally don't want to do two back to back, but I really like the idea. So I'm bringing another one of Jeanette's in because I want to. So there you go. I had this in the back, but it's like, I love again, taking dies, and Jeanette just rocked this challenge in the mixed medium, like stay true. Like you don't need to do a card. You don't need to do that. Just take all of your stuff and just go for it and how you would use a die. And just taking a panel, right? Doing the mixed media and just using letters, right? There's no other dies on there. But I think that's the power of using your tools in the way that you want them to perform for your art, right? I think seeing that these words on both of her pieces, I look at the background, I'm like, I see all the color and the layers and the text. But then when I see the die cuts on there, it's like, okay, that to me it gives that art piece a message, right? To me, doesn't mean you have to, right? I love mixed media that has just nothing but splashes of color. But I also love the fact that you can take a shape and totally do your look and feel and style. And so to me, that's just proof to see two different ideas, but just using a die in that way. All right, moving on. So next we're going to get into some cards, okay? So this card, Jan created this, and I love, you know me, I love a good shakety shake, but I really loved the metallic crack leather. I mean, look at that. Look at that beautiful blue crack leather texture on metallic, right? Sanded away with a little ink, little "you make me smile," because again, the bold text is designed to create that dropout. So then you can make a shakety shake in there. So I'm really glad that we have a shaker that Jan did. I love the colors of this card. I love the metallic in there, and again, a little ideology, heart charm. But that's really nice. I mean, that's the thing to remember when it comes to all of these components, that you can really, the color, look at how it catches that light. Whoo, beautiful. The color, to me it's magic, all right? So Kubert created this. Look at this inky background card. I love the stamps as a resist. I love the ink, love the layers, and really love just that stacked up depth of letters, right? Taking your letters, cutting them out, building them up to add just a little bit of extra depth and dimension. This is an older wildflower die. I love it, just seeing those little bits pop up, right? I think it's kind of the whole arrangement of wildflowers. I love that die. But again, celebrate all of these little details, right? Look at mixed media for what it is. A little bit of stenciling, a little bit of stamping, some inking, maybe just a little crackle here and there. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. And once you let go of that, really, once you embrace your imperfection, man, you will have a blast making, because every idea, it doesn't have to be fully cooked, right? You can have a lot of things simmering at one time. You can have this, set that off. You can do this, have that. But then you have all these components to really bring things together, because I don't think that people are going to sit down to make a card, right? And then maybe a maker, to start there and say, okay, I'm going to do an inked background, I'm going to do stenciling, I'm going to do stamping, I'm going to do this and do die cutting just to make that card. It'd be like, nah, I'm just going to make a quick one. But I think that giving yourself those little compartmental times to just explore the what if, man, it's cool. These cards, these are all from Tiffany, and I love, again, the idea of repetition. I say that a lot to makers because it's really amazing what you can get out of your backgrounds and what you do, right? So taking the bold text too, and look at that alcohol ink background. Oh, I love it. It's like a galaxy, right? so beautiful. And I love the contrast, how Tiffany put it over that white cardstock. But then taking those pieces, right? Taking the cutouts, look at that cracked leather on black. Ooh, that is nice. Look at that 3D folder, right? You don't have to do anything to it, but just put it on that, put it in that color cardstock and off you go. But using the positive and the negative to create those cards, wonderful, right? It's a 2-for-1. You just cut it out and layer that. And you don't have to think like, oh, I need to do more of that. There is beauty in simplicity. Just put it on there and off you go. But you can also use your backgrounds, whether you had leftover things, and you can use it for the shapes. There's that big heart, right? I told you from Abstract Faces, if you look at the shapes, look at how great that heart is. It's big enough for a card front. It's not just a perfect puffy heart. It's a little off, which I think is great. And then adding the positive letters from bold text, amazing. And look at this colorful leather background. I told you on the cracked leather and the woven, I mean, you've seen amazing backgrounds with both, but just how, you can kind of look at that and go, oh yeah, I don't really want leather. I don't really want to do brown. It's about the texture. And look at how great that texture is with all of these ink colors going in there and just how they drip and ooze and that little bit of scuffety bit, right? Where it's just scuffed off to show a little bit of that white core and then choose to shine on the top. Really, I love the dimension, right? When they're stacked. I know it's time consuming, but I love the dimension when letters are stacked. But again, positive and negative of working with letters and words, because that's it. You can take anything you want with bold text and just make it your own. All right. So Sharon created this card. Again, love the pop of color. You'll see the background, cracked leather on white. Simple, right? So you saw it just on black. Now you see it on white. There's, ooh, this is nice little smoothie paper in black, and then I love that little bit of glittery sparkle, right? You got this. And all of those, again, are stacked up, just stacking those die cut layers. But what a great fun card with that pop of color, right? See, I see people love the pop of color, but the ideas, that's the thing about cards, right? The ideas are just incredible. It's another card that Sharon did. This is Lucky as a State of Mind. And you'll see, like, from a card, right, that you can still start with a card. You can have a card base, but you can still just kind of do any panel, because this card could easily go into a frame. I mean, take a look at, first of all, we've got that background, right? That little subtlety of that woven, right? The back of it. Then we have Lucky as a State of Mind cut out, some scratched metallic. So this is Ideology. I don't know if you guys can really see that it's a gold metallic cardstock, but it's scuffed. So it gives it a nice worn effect that really complements this. And then we have all of those impresslets. Look at all the ones that she did. And I love how they bleed off the edge and they're just cut off, right? So you cut this one off and you place it down and you just keep chopping that off. But what a great background for this card. Isn't that great? Oh, see, that's why you want the impresslet. It's very, very cool just to see that little bit. And I'm just guessing that this is foundry wax. I could be totally wrong and setting myself up for this, but it's very, very shiny. It's really beautiful. I don't know if you can see that gold on there. If it is, man, Sharon, you have a very steady hand of dry brushing, because you can still see the detail. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful card, right? And then she's going to surprise us with color. She's like, yeah, okay, here we go. Stacked hearts, felt, right? Really fun. Love with all your heart. Doesn't have to be Valentine's Day to show someone you love them. Remember that. It could be just for...
Yes, it's foundry wax.
Woo, that is amazing. Yeah, well, I mean, I've just never seen anything shine like that. But yeah, they all look gilded. But man, you've got a really steady hand, Sharon. I love it. So here...
What's amazing is how you can just pick out stuff that's... You see stuff. Man, do you see it.
You
do, you see
I
it.
try. I'm sure I miss a lot, but I think because I'm seeing it for the first time, I'm a 5-year-old. It's like I just want to be like sucked into like, what did you do and what did you use? And so I think that's why I prefer to only see it for the first time in live, because that's when I can hopefully pick out the details. So here you can see the stacked hearts. I love that texture, right? It's got a great texture, and then love with all your heart over the top. But again, that inky background, those colors, and just playing around with it. Taking just the text, right? So think of bold text too, going back into your stash and going, okay, what kind of dies do I have, or impresslets or anything to really pair up with those quotes. You'll be surprised, right, what you might have, whether it's the clover, the hearts, or to the moon and back and you have the moon mask. There's always a lot of elements that you can do just from a sentiment. And I think that's great, right? So many ideas just for words, because obviously when you look at the die pack, you're like, okay, words, do I need them? Well, I designed the bold text, and I'm really glad that people like it, because I did have to commit. If I was going to do it, I committed to the whole year. I'm like, well, I'm going to do 1, 2, Halloween and Christmas. Like, and if they don't like the idea, well, it's going to be a rough year. But, you know, hopefully you guys do, because I've seen that first one's done really good.
Yeah.
All right. How are we doing?
They love the color, the Sharon's colors.
It's just
how you
fun.
mix them all together.
It's just fun. Well, if you like how things are mixed together, then just get ready, because we're going to finish up with abstract faces. And that is, you know, and I said this to the makers when we did the maker call, like I was a little nervous that, you know, what were the makers going to think about
you were really sweating.
this set? I'm like, they're just going to think like, Tim, like bring the grunge back, because you've just really fallen off you've like fallen off something and hit your head. But for me, it's like there is grunge out there, and these can be grungy, but I think that in creativity, we always need to just challenge our way of thinking and know what we have and know what we don't have. And that's what I always look at, right? Could I just do die cuts of gears for days? Sure. But I have gears, and gears are gears. Does that mean I'll never do gears? It doesn't mean that, but it means that I want to always try to do some different things. And I think different things, and when you see all these ideas, I mean, there's so many. There's just a pile. I'll try to stay organized and bring it in, and we'll build up this background. So we'll start with these that Tiffany did, right? Small little, these could be ATCs. These could go into a junk journal. They could just be little works of art, because you can sit down and just play around with all of your shapes. But like I said about abstract faces, these little elements, right? Look at that little element, that little scribble. There's a stamped background. I love the transparent wings that went on top. These are stitched right on there, right? You see a little sewing. And then I love just those little stickers, right? Little small talk, or you can do chit chat. You can do any kind of stickers, or you can just type these out if you wanted to, right? But you can take these backgrounds and really go in and do those different pieces by taking these shapes and scribbles and create these backgrounds. I think they're so cool of what a scribble or an odd shape can do. And especially when you have that idea of saying, okay, I'm going to use up those wings. How beautiful is that, right? Keep moving forward, let life surprise you, and do what you love. So again, this could be an ATC. It could go into a journal, or it can go right on the front of a card, or it could be the card. It just depends on the style of maker you are. See how fun it is just to put those shapes and keeping them neutral? Amazing, right? Very cool to see. Yeah, the details are the magic part of it, right? So Tammy created this card, again, using that heart. That heart is embossed with cracked leather, a little bit of purple color over the top, and then we've got those stems in there. I love the inky background. So it just gave that shape the spotlight, right? You can still use the words from bold text. You can build everything else, but that's the importance of that specific die of abstract faces. And I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought, well, if I just put a bunch of shapes on the front of it, I don't know, are people going to be like, I don't get it. So I needed to create something, and I happen to think that the face is cool and quirky. Cool and quirky is the way, I think, the way it should be, right? So Debbie Adams created this. I love this card using, again, the abstract, but just using a very colorful, brushstrokey way. And Debbie and I used to work at Sizzix together, and she just has a way of taking dies and just going next level. And I wanted to bring this out so I can show you another thing that she made, because I celebrate all the makers. Debbie and I really go back, and she's like our wild card is what I say to Paula, because it's like, we're going to get something that's just, she's going to do what she does.
So Debbie.
Yeah. And I love the fact that she just takes these pieces, does watercolor, does her own kind of brush inking on the back, and add the scribbles and the stickers. But what she does with a shape, right? So take a look at this, because this is just like, do we have anything like it? No, but this is what Debbie does. Okay. So these are the brushstroke butterflies, and just, they look like they are ceramic on this piece of, the thinnest piece of cool wood ever, with that little feather, right? and you can see just the attention to detail that she puts in. I mean, working for Sizzix, she understands the die. She doesn't work for Sizzix anymore, but what she can bring to the table every time is just, Debbie, I celebrate your uniqueness and just your ability to see well beyond a shape. But the glaze on here, right? When I saw this, Paul's like, just know, you're going to get like this piece of wood, and just be careful but it's absolutely stunning, the detail. So I just want to show, like, from a maker perspective, right, how a maker can be so different in just their style from one make to the next. Because, well, when you really understand that you can just take an idea and run with it, and it doesn't have to be the same every single thing you do, every idea can be celebrated. That's what I hope this live is really encouraging you guys to do, is to just don't shut down those ideas that are in the back of your head. And I think many makers do. They're like, nah, that's really not my look. That's not my style. I don't know what that is. Your style is right now. That's your style. And in a minute from now or 30 seconds from now, it can be completely different, and that's okay. But it's about textures, right? I'll say it again. I told you I would. Wood, glaze where it looks ceramic, and then just adding some natural elements. Just amazing. Amazing. All right. So speaking of amazing, we're just going to keep going with textures and look and feel, right? This is another envelope that Natifa did. I love the colors. I love, again, that organic look, very much like that wood slice that Debbie did. This is using the colorized wood grain in the background. Look at that with paper. And I love how Natifa did the faces. I love this repeat going all the way around, right? She just used that as a background. I mean, look at how amazing that is. Some foundry wax over the top. Look, because I can tell from the shine of that. I mean, this is like, it's like it's covered in pennies, right? Just because of how shiny that is. But it's just that detail where if you wanted to replicate an organic look of wood grain or anything like that, the ability to do that with die cuts. And I really love the stark contrast in the palette, right? Where this is just a black, dark background, and then using foundry wax, right, to really bring in the shine, and then just add that bold pop of color from that face. I mean, it's stunning. And I know that Natifa does envelopes, but really I just see these as like, okay, right, work of art, right? That just goes on an easel or goes in a frame, and that's what you can do, right? As makers, or, sometimes people say, oh, I'm a paper crafter, I'm a card maker. Yeah, we craft in paper, but when you start mixing things up and mixing up the pieces that you want to use and your styles and how you want to do it, well, sky is the limit, right? So this is a vignette that Emma created, and I love that she created those faces that are similar to the packaging, but in all the fun, funky, bright colors, right? So this is a vignette, right? A vignette tray. Love how she has the words on the side, choose to shine, right? Use that. And then just created these pieces. It's got a fun little whimsical finial that she built, so this could just stand up or hang on the wall. But look at all those colors, right? Bright colors, again, all inky, because ink is just, it's way more vivid and fun and playful than color cardstock. So again, if you're one of those makers that just, you feel very comfortable with color cardstock, I challenge you to just take out a sheet of white cardstock, say, okay, I'm going to make something with this, and all of my color is going to come from my inks. And then whether it's distress or markers or whatever it is you have, you'll be surprised of the depth that little bit of inky texture is going to give a make. I love seeing that woven in the background. Right, look at that cool texture back there. And just those pops of color. Aren't they playful? I like it because now I see faces, and it's like, I got it. I can do those, right? I can create that look, and they can be however you want. You can mix and match any of those shapes however you want to utilize those, right? You see these little X's? Yeah, look familiar? See, pairing old with new. That's the great part also about dies, is that just you can build up your collection with that, okay? Then we have, this is from Jeanette, also this is kind of a different style of book, right? But this wouldn't have to be a book. I mean, it's tied together, and it can be, but again, taking ideas and just choosing whatever size canvas or substrate. But just, you can, I look at the style and you can recognize maker style. I think that's great. But seeing the backgrounds, again, those flowers, taking these shapes and just doing something fun and whimsical, remember to accept yourself. I think that's just, it's so great. Love the positive messaging of art that you can put into it, right? Whether you're using dies or stickers or your own writing. Taking any pieces, right? Any of the die cuts. This is from chapter 1. You seeing that? I love that plaid back there. It's really cool. Love this shape out of alcohol ink. I think seeing so much alcohol ink also has inspired me. I need to cut out more alcohol ink backgrounds, I think, because I love the colors, right? I saw that she's done and what Tiffany's done, but yeah, I like that really bold pop of color that you're going to get from those, right? I love a little snark, right? I'm sorry, did I roll my eyes out loud? That's good. I do love a little snark. But see, you can see again those components, but made into something unique and different, right? That is what's fun about those shapes. A little bit of modern floristry back there, right? Some layers and textures, some ephemera, labels, little label tape. Yeah, I love that. Very cool. See, just so many different styles along the way. And then Sharon created this whole series of cards. So if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, I am not into the whole abstract mixed media thing, right? Like I don't think I can, I'm not there yet, but maybe you want to get there. But take a look at just the clean, simple punch of color approach to using abstract faces, right? So Sharon created this whole little series of cards. Again, texture, right? Whether it's felt, whether it's a little foam. I think this is, little fun foam, right? That's that one. That's felt. And then different papers, and then the ideology label stickers. But look how she just pieced all of these pieces together. See, you do you. I do love that. I love these label stickers. It's just fun to have all these quotes already done. Right? Be you bravely. See, just shapes. How cool are just using these cards? So think of all, and then be amazed. So think of all the substrates that you have. Maybe it's cork, right? Because you can cut thin cork from Thinlits felt. Play around with different mediums that you can cut. And also, of course, depending on your machine, that's also going to determine how much you can cut. But taking those pieces, cutting them out of different substrates, and just start building these up, that's it, right? It's about giving yourself permission to try something new. It may not end up being your favorite, but it might just surprise you. It really will. It might surprise you immensely to see how you can take a design and turn it into something completely amazing, right? So got one other make to show you, or series of makes, because, well, when I just said amazed and be open to it, I will admit that when I saw these in an email, I was amazed, all right?
You were.
So I was. So a shout out to Pete Hughes, who works for Sizzix in the UK. He makes so many amazing things for Sizzix, and he really does incredible things with my dies. So I'm so grateful to Pete and Josh, but the support that Pete has shown through the years has just been unbelievable. And Pete has got his own great style with my dies, completely different than what I do, and that's what I love about that. But I learned something about Pete for this release that I didn't know, so I'm going to share that. So he made these cards, he sent them to me because he sent an email, he's like, just wanted to share what I've been making, and I'm like, whoa, you need to send them, all right? So this is about taking abstract faces and really inspiring the work by artists, right? Famous artists. Now, I'm not into the whole art and gallery. I had to get a little bit of lesson from Paula, because Paula loves to go to art galleries and she's very familiar. I would have to say that I'm not as educated in that, but I still love the style of things. So you can see on these cards that he's mimicking the look and feel of an artist, right? So this is Matisse, and all of these kind of quotes and text, Pete likes to print these off on his computer. So that's another idea, right? If you've got cardstock and you have a printer that will take cardstock, just go in and type out and print out your own card. Print out your own card base if you're looking for that perfect sentiment, right? So here he did Matisse with this great style using the components of the abstract faces. Here he did Picasso, right? And I saw some of those comments when I first shared the faces where you're like, oh, it's very Picasso. And there you go. If I don't have red, I use blue, Picasso. But look how he just layered those shapes, pieces on piece, and then just the offset of the eyes and the scribbles and just these backgrounds and that use of color, right? So cool, so awesome. And this I was expecting, believe it or not. I was expecting some modern art, but then I saw something totally different. And that would be something like this. So he sent a board, and he's like, okay, so if you have a board, I think I have it upside down. Well, it's not going to matter in a minute, you'll see. But he's like, I'm just going to send you a step-up board. Do you see anything in this? I'm like, well, no. I mean, I thought, well, that's an interesting, I mean, you can see I didn't have it the right way up. I thought, no, I don't know. This is his brain to create this, right? So Pete used to be a caricature artist for years before he worked for Sizzix. I didn't know that about him. So he has the ability to see shapes and actually turn them into caricatures. So this is Vermeer. This is Girl with the Pearl Earring. Look at, I mean, that's recognizable. And I don't even know a lot of art, but I totally understood this, right? When I saw this, I'm like, that is the, so I zoomed Paula right away. I'm like, you've got to see this. Like, you know this. And she's like, yes. I'm like, I don't even know what that says, but I didn't read that. She's like, no, that's Vermeer. These are all pieces. So if you really break it down, that's what he's showing is like the body. Yep, that's the heart upside down. There's the scribble. This is where you take these pieces, glue them down, and then you have a heart, but then you take another heart and offset it and cut the heart from the heart, and now you're getting pieces, and you just start cutting out your backgrounds to build shapes. Because he said if you look at the abstract faces, you can take a shape and offset it and cut another sliver using those same curved lines from two different pieces of cardstock simply by doing this. You cut the shape, but then you offset that same shape, and now you're going to get new pieces, right? So how amazing is that, right? And seeing just the little eye cut out of a circle, because that's a circle from the half circle, but then he laid that in, which notched that out. He's got all the little leftover pieces that create those drops, the little scribbles. I mean, amazing, right?
Wow. Like, I can't even grasp.
And then he sent this, and I'm like, okay, right? What, like what? Okay, I'm kind of getting, I get this. I see some kind of skin tones. Yep, I'm kind of seeing some hair and ears, but I still couldn't. Seriously, spectacular. Frida Kahlo, look at that. I paint flowers so they will not die. Look at that. I mean, chills, just even thinking about it. Look at how amazing that is with these abstract faces, the scribbles, the dots, the lips, right? And then these roses, this is the tiny tattered floral die. So these are all out of paper, right? That little die set that I did where you can curl up those little roses and put those in her hair. I mean, come on. Like, I understood abstract faces, but my abstract face is like, that's nothing compared to this. This is just incredible. And I say thanks to Pete because I wanted these cards. I'm like, will you please send them for live? And he's like, oh, I have to do a live, but sure. And so he made a second set. So he's got a set in the UK and made the set to ship, so I have it for live. So really, Pete, like, absolutely unbelievable to see how you can, and certainly inspirational, because this is just making me want to see shapes and play around and try things, right? You know, it's like, oh, that would be really cool. I like Walt Disney. I don't know if I can do Disney like this. Probably Pete could, but I love the idea of just taking faces and shapes and really coming up with something unique and your own. And then he just kept wowing me. Like, I would get another email. He's like, what do you think of this? I mean, Andy Warhol? Come on. Marilyn Monroe with that? Kiss Me With Your Eyes? Just, I have no words other than wow, amazing, incredible. That this really just from an abstract, if you are into the whole idea of truly building faces, I think these cards will provide some serious information, inspiration and information on how you can take perspective, right? Whether it's going to be face on or a side profile or just using parts and pieces. And I love the mix and match of color, right? I love how the eyeshadow and the lips are different colors. They go with the background. It's just amazing. But the scribbles, right? This idea of putting the scribbles on the paper before you die cut it to get the scribbles in the paper, that right there was like, wow, got it, right? I've seen it on the box. I showed you Tammy's box with the scribbles, but I never thought of just doing a paper of die cut scribbles to give me very textured, very cool color paper. And even if I don't use this idea for faces, I will use this idea for other things, the birds, the flowers, any of that. And that's what I was saying about being inspired, that often you can see an idea, and whether you may or may not ever do Andy Warhol or Frida or Vermeer or Picasso or Matisse, you may not do any of that, but you can celebrate the idea that you see in there and like, oh, I should add more flowers on something. Oh, I love, I'm going to try this die, shifting in and cutting out another layer, or I'm going to try that scribble thing, which is definitely my takeaway from this, because I absolutely love this, right? And then his final one, because he's like, after I did this, I couldn't resist. And he did Madonna. And I was like, shh, drop the mic. Like, come on. So he did Crazy for You, Madonna. I mean, just look at that. Look at everything about that card. Can we even, from just the face, the expression, how he can change expressions using the same components, and how, like, the top of the hair, there's the heart, right? They're two different shapes, right? So this is that like orange kind of scallopy shape. That's that shape that we've seen as like a caterpillar or a leaf. And then just the lips, right? The little bustier that he did, the gold on gold. I mean, come on, really? So I just figured I kind of needed to just show that in all its magnificence to Pete Hughes, because that is pure brilliance to take with a die cut. But knowing that about him, where he's like, no, I actually see characters in shapes, and I'm like, I didn't know that about you. That was kind of a new thing for me. So really, really cool to see that. So that is what I love about chapter 2.